Hey guys, welcome to Tales from a Retro Gamer, episode number 14. My name is Brett Weiss. I'm going to be talking about Mo GameCon today. It was an excellent video game convention, August 3rd in St. Louis, Missouri. I had a blast. We're going to be talking about pickups and other stuff. First of all, we do have a sponsor this episode. It's Old School Gamer Magazine. Now, I write for Old School Gamer, just an FYI, but it is, in my opinion, an excellent magazine. You can find them at oldschoolgamermagazine.com. This is the special convention issue. They give those out free at various conventions around the country. Here's a regular issue, number 10, with excellent cover art by Thor Thorvaldsen. Writers for the magazine include guys like Leonard Herman, Michael Thomason, the guy that programmed E.T. and Yar's Revenge, Howard Scott Warshaw, had an article in the latest issue, and lots of other great writers, and it's a really good magazine, so I highly recommend you check it out. If you go to oldschoolgamermagazine.com, you can subscribe to a free digital subscription. So anyway, Mo GameCon was August 3rd, but the Friday before that, we left and we stopped in southern Arkansas on the way there. It's almost halfway to the show, and what we took my mom with us so she could visit with her sister, my Aunt Ava. And we stopped and had lunch, this incredible southern cooking, just delicious. We had chicken fried steak, mac and cheese, black-eyed peas, fried okra, fried cornbread, the works. It was amazing. So thank you, Aunt Ava, for that. Okay, so it was a pretty, 10, 11 hour drive. We were pretty tired when we got in Friday night, so we went to bed pretty early. My wife and I went, and she was very supportive and helped me out during the show. So the show started Saturday, like I said, August 3rd at 9:30 that morning for VIPs. If you paid a little extra, you got to get into the show an hour early, which is really good for pickups if you're looking for bargains or rare games or whatever. And then the rest of the show opened at 10:30. Now that morning at 11, I had a panel with Walter Day. We talked video game history, we talked Twin Galaxies, we talked the history of esports. Just had an absolutely excellent panel. It was a lot of fun, very well attended, very interactive, had some really good questions. At the end of the panel, I gave away a copy of the SNES Omnibus Volume 1. That's my latest project, my Super Nintendo book. And like a dummy, I didn't take a picture of the winner, but he was happy to get it. And the question he answered was, I had a trivia question at the end. What was the classic arcade game that came to the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo in 1998? And it was the last Sega Genesis official release. So you can Google that real quick, or you may know off the top of your head. The answer is Frogger. It was a great port for the Sega Genesis, arcade perfect. For the Super Nintendo, it was a stinker, but you can read about that in the SNES Omnibus. Throughout the day, sales were very good. Mo GameCon, I should say, it was very well attended, real enthusiastic fan base. Talked retro gaming all day. People were coming up. They were bringing books to me that they had gotten at Barnes & Noble or that they brought from home and got off Amazon to sign. I sold a whole bunch of books. Busy vendor room all day long. Lots of energy in the place. It was an excellent show. Absolutely loved it. Had a great time. Now I want to show you my pickups real quick. Now next to me there was an artist, Atkins. His last name was Atkins, and he does a comic called Final Street, which you gamers know is sort of a cross between Final Fight and Street Fighter. And really nice art. He was kind enough to give me that. Much appreciated. And I picked up a copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters for the Genesis. Now, this is a pretty hard to find game. It's not rare or anything, but it's very highly sought after. It's a fun game. A lot of Turtles fans out there. I got it complete for 20 bucks. Very happy with that. That's for my own Genesis collection. As you can see back here, that's going in my collection. And I bought a magazine. There was a magazine vendor there that had a whole bunch of magazines for $1, $2, $3 a piece. I picked out a copy of Game Room magazine. Now that has a lot of pinball articles and things like that and showcases of people's game rooms. What I like about it is it's got an interview with Cassandra Peterson, aka Elvira. Now I've met her before at the San Diego Comic-Con. She's super nice, she's super cool. She's a horror host that's funny and knows a lot about movies. She's obviously gorgeous, very cool interview. So that was nice to find. That kind of crossed two of my favorite hobbies, horror movies and video games. So I was happy to get that. And like I say, it was a great show and it was really neat. I ran into a lot of friends. Jason Broussard, who runs Trading Games in Missouri, he was there set up. It was really cool to see him. Now I ran into Jason, I've seen him at shows and stuff, and we've been friends for a really long time. One time we were at a show in, I believe it was Oklahoma, and I just ran into him at a video game store. I think it might have been GameStop or something like that, or Vintage Stock, whatever the case. He was looking at the PlayStation 1 games. Now, if you know Jason, he's pretty well known in the gaming community. He has got a ridiculous collection. If you look on YouTube, you can see a tour of his game room. And it was kind of interesting. I ran into him when he was buying a PlayStation 1 game. That was the very last PlayStation game he needed for his entire collection. He has every US release, every PS1 game complete in the case, and I just so happened to be at the store when he was buying it. It was something silly like Rugrats or something like that. It was just this oddball game. It wasn't particularly rare. He just happened to stumble across it in the wild before. So it was cool seeing him on that occasion. So it was good to see Jason. Ran into Pixel Dan, which was cool because I just got through watching the Video Game Years on Amazon Prime. You can find that streaming for free. Really good show. They'll take each individual year, talk about a lot of the arcade games and console games that came out at that time. Colorful, fun, humorous. So it was cool to see Pixel Dan. That was the first time I met him, and he was kind enough to stop for a photo. And I also ran into Ryan Berger. Now, he's the publisher of Old School Gamer magazine. Like I mentioned before, they're the sponsor of this particular episode. I write for Old School Gamer. I have a column called Brett's Old School Bargain Bin, where I talk about, really good games that you can play on the cheap. And so thanks again to Old School Gamer Magazine at oldschoolgamermagazine.com. You can subscribe for free to their digital edition. And if you'd like, you can pay to get a physical edition. Really cool magazine. Each episode comes with a full color poster, and there's lots of retro gaming goodness in each issue. Now, during Mo GameCon, this woman brought by this little slips of paper advertising this toy show. Now, it wasn't a very impressive flyer. It was obviously done on the cheap. It was just kind of scrawled out. It was like Toy Man toy show. But it started at 9 o'clock that morning, the next morning, Sunday morning. And the video game event, so Mo GameCon I mentioned before, it was a one-day show. But on Sunday, there was a VIP lunch, so where the guests could be. So the guests at Mo GameCon were myself, Pat Contry, Jay from the Game Chasers, Norm the Gaming Historian, and a few others. And Walter Day, obviously, since we did a panel. And the next day was the VIP lunch. If you had paid to get in early and done the VIP experience, you could go to this VIP lunch and mingle with the guests. And we had a nice lunch of fried chicken and green beans and mashed potatoes and everything. But that wasn't until 11 o'clock. And the toy show that Sunday morning opened at 9, which was really cool. So, most like Saturday shows tend to start around 10, whether it's toys or games or comics or whatever. Sunday shows often don't start till 11 or 12. So it was really neat that this particular toy show opened at 9. That gave us almost 2 hours to check it out. And so we thought, well, let's get up a little early on Sunday morning. Let's go to this. It doesn't look like much because of the flyer, but it turned out to be this amazing, amazing toy show. It was about 15 minutes from our hotel. So I'm so glad we went. It was just loaded down with everything from 60s and 70s TV memorabilia to old posters. They had quite a few video games, including this vintage Atari Pong in the box. It was about $80, so I passed on it. I'd really like to get it, because I've mentioned in a previous episode that the Atari Pong that came out in 1975, the console version that you could take home, was one of the very first video games I played, and the thing that really turned me on to home gaming. So you can find that episode. So that was neat to see. There were premium toys, there were DVDs and Blu-rays, and just this place was amazing. So I'm going to show you a few of my pickups from this show. I got this Brooke Shields doll. Now this, I only paid $10 for it. My plan is to put it in my booth in my antique mall. That was my plan, but I got to looking at it. Really nice looking box. She's obviously very beautiful, and I've always been a big Brooke Shields fan. And I got to thinking, I might just keep this and put it on the shelf beside my copy of Tilt. This is a classic pinball movie. Check out the back of the box. Really rare to find in VHS form. I don't even think this has ever been released on DVD before, but it's a really cool movie. And in my gaming room, I just might put these side by side. Let me know what you think, if I should keep the Brooke doll or not. You can let me know in the comments. Anyway, I'm definitely keeping Tilt, which I've had for a long time. Now, at the toy show, I also picked up Archie graphic novel for a couple of bucks, Death of Archie. Kind of gruesome. Most Archie comics are lighthearted, but apparently he actually dies in this one, so I'm kind of curious to read that. Now, the coolest thing I found at the toy show, I was super excited. As a kid, if you've read my bio or maybe watched some more of my videos, you know that I was really into the Scholastic Book Club, and that every month I would get, my mom would let me get 3 books or magazines or whatever, and I always got Dynamite magazine, but sometimes I also got Bananas. Big fan of Bananas magazine. It was sort of the Disney adventures of its day or whatever, and like there's Dallas, there's some Dukes of Hazzard, more Dukes plus Bo Derek. Now this is the issue that caught my eye because it's got Superman on it, and my son really likes Dolly Parton. Happy Days, Chips, Eric Estrada. Anyway, great 70s, 80s magazine. I was really excited to find a stack of those just for a couple of bucks each. Then I got these Doctor Who episode guides for $2-3 each. Tom Baker, as everybody knows, the best doctor. Those were some good finds. I love books and magazines. And interestingly enough, the other toy I found at the show that was for me was actually on the way to Missouri, on the way to the convention, on the way to Mo Game Con. I found Wreck-It Ralph and Vanellope for just $5 at Barnes & Noble. We had stopped at a Barnes & Noble on the way because I wanted to see if they were carrying my books. They weren't, but I did find this in the clearance bin for just $5. So that's really neat. And let's see, what else? My wife went with me to this toy show as well, as I mentioned, and she got super excited. She's a huge Brady Bunch fan. She found the Jan Brady figure, which is harder to find than the other characters. She's with her invisible boyfriend, George Glass. If you've seen the episode, you get it. Anyway, she's a big Brady Bunch fan, and she was so excited when she found that. Got a good deal for it. And she also found something that my son really wanted. My son Ryan, who's kind enough to film these episodes. The Jaws figure pop toy of Shark biting Quint, which is, the seminal moment in the movie, except maybe other than Roy Scheider killing Jaws. This is really cool. Now, he wanted this sort of as an investment. We texted him to see if he wanted it. He did. They had 50 on it, and I paid of course, if you know me well, I like a bargain, and I talked him down to 40, which is a really good deal for this, because online you can find it maybe $60, $70, $80. So for Ryan, maybe that's an investment. Maybe he's going to put it on his shelf. Regardless, he's a big Jaws fan, and so we got that for him. He paid us back. Okay, so a lot of good pickups at the toy show. Had an absolute blast at Mo Game Con. So we stayed at the toy show for about 2 hours. So we got to the VIP lunch, my wife and I, around 11:30. We arrived right as Jay, Pat, and Norm got there. And so we went in together and picked out a table and sat down, and we were talking and stuff. And it was a good lunch, and they had free beer and everything. But before the beer arrived, a fan came up and was talking to us at the table, and he had brought a cooler with some cans of beer. And so, of course, Jay got a beer, I got a beer. Norm and Pat declined, but it was funny because I opened my beer, no problem, took a sip. And with Jay's luck, of course, he opens it, and it explodes, and it gets all over his hands and on his shirt and his face. And it was very, very funny. We had a lot of laughs for that lunch. All of us, we stayed there maybe a couple of hours, and we had a lot of good times. It was really good catching up with Pat, Norm, and Jay, and the rest of the guests and the fans. It was just a lot of fun. Really cool VIP lunch. Kind of a benefit of the Mo Game Con was, the convention is busy. Saturday, you're working, you're making sales, you're talking to fans, and did a panel. The next day, the VIP lunch was very relaxing, so it was a great show. Thanks to Chad Hager and everybody that had us out to Mo Game Con. Now, my wife and I wanted to stay a couple of days when we were there. We're driving all that distance, so we hung out in St. Louis for a couple of days. We did the obligatory selfie in front of the St. Louis Arch, the gateway to the west, the big structure downtown. It's beautiful. It was really nice just kind of walking around downtown and checking that out. While we were in town, we made sure somebody at the Mo Game Con had recommended Sugar Fire Barbecue. Now they said, I know you're from Texas and you guys claim to have the best barbecue, but we have some excellent barbecue too, and I'll put your barbecue or our barbecue up against yours anytime. Sugar Fire Barbecue in the downtown area was delicious. We each had a sandwich that had pepper sausage, jalapeno pepper sausage, and brisket, and the works, and it was really, really good. So yeah, I would never say it's better than Texas barbecue, but it was good. As a Texan, I approve. We also, now while we were there and we were just bumming around the town. I got a text from Kelsey Lewin, the popular YouTuber. You may have seen some of her videos. She said, while you're there, you have to go to Emo's Pizza. Now, I said, okay, we'll check it out. Now, before we went, I looked up some of the reviews, and they were a little iffy. Some of them praised it, some of them said it's nasty, so that even made us want to go there more. We were really curious what this stuff was like. So we did go there for lunch at one point, and it was very interesting pizza. We got the works, and the crust is sort of almost like a cracker, real thin, real crispy, and they use provolone cheese, which is really an interesting choice for pizza. But that was kind of odd. But then there was really crispy bacon on it, and the works, sausage, pepperonis, vegetables. It was good. So it was an experience. It wouldn't be my go-to pizza place, but I'm glad I got to experience it once. It's kind of a touristy kind of place. You kind of are supposed to go there when you visit the St. Louis. So we were glad we went. Now, the Monday of that trip was our last day in town. We were going to leave early the next morning to go back to Arkansas to pick up my mom and then go on home. But my wife had asked if I wanted to go to the City Museum. That's a big touristy thing in St. Louis. And I thought, well, we'd been to a lot of museums lately. I like museums, but I was slightly burnt out. I didn't want to just go to a museum and look at stuff. She goes, oh no, it's not your typical museum. It's very interactive. There are things to climb. It's massive. There are caves to explore. And it's like 10 floors, and there's slides and rides and everything. I was like, well, that's odd. There's a lot of found art there, like things you just pick up and put together and make bottles and pieces of metal and a couple of old airplanes all welded together. So that's why it's called a museum, because there are a lot of relics there, but it's all built into ladders and everything. It's amazing. But while we were there, I was totally shocked. One of the floors had an arcade. They had an entire row of electromechanical machines, including my favorite electromechanical game of all time, Speedway, which I did make a video of. You can check that out on my channel. And they also had Monster Gun, which is a really cool target shooting game that I'd never played before. They also had a row of old pinball machines. It was great. So we spent, an hour or so there, totally surprised. Really fit into the whole theme of the trip. I've had a really busy summer. I've gone on several trips. I've gone to video game conventions. Let me know in the comments, have you gone on any video game themed trips this summer? I'd gone down to Austin to Classic Game Fest, and obviously up to St. Louis, and I went to Houston. Several trips. We went down to Galveston, and we worked in video. I was either going to a convention or working in video games in some way or another during the trips. Went to Pinball's Arcade in Austin. Let me know in the comments, did you take any video game themed trips this summer? Let me know. Please let me know if you enjoyed that and what you did. We have some comments on last week's episode. Thank you guys for watching and commenting. Last week I talked about an interesting experience I had when I returned gore for the ColecoVision back in the day, back in the 80s. And I asked if you guys had any interesting return stories, anything odd happened to you while you were returning a game, or just anything really to do with returning video games. Delph Meek said, I would never return Gorf. I received Now, Delph Meek is a really good friend of mine, and we have this running joke about he thinks Carnival is awful, and I think it's a great game. It's a target shooting game. He says, I received Carnival for the 2600 for Christmas one year, and I wanted to send that back to Santa. Video Game Obsession says, back in the 80s, I also abused the return policy of many stores in our area. Toys R Us here would even give you refunds on games without receipts. The only catch was that it was issued in Jeffrey bucks. That was sort of their credit system. Brian Ashmore Studio says, your JC Penney return story cracks me up. I didn't pick up on the boss screen differences as a teen, but the missing Galaxian stage did bother me. ColecoVision games that were missing things just seemed more aggravating than, say, Atari VCS games. Back then, they seemed so close to the arcade versions that the differences really did stand out. Agreed, ColecoVision had stunning arcade ports, and it was a little annoying when they would leave a screen out or whatever. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Speaking of subscribing, I've had a ton of new subscribers lately. I'm closing in on 800. I've had some new subscribers from Mo GameCon, from Let's Play Gaming Expo, from Classic Game Fest, and thank you to my son Ryan, who reached out to a lot of his friends to check out the channel. Thank you very much. Peace out. And I also picked up this book.
No.
What?
No.
And I also got
No. Oh.
Sorry. Here.
Okay, you. Oh my gosh.